Hi folks, how you doing? This is Iqbal with NVDA Daily Analysis. In this video, we will discuss NVIDIA stock price movement for today and try to make an assessment for rest of the week. We'll also take a look news regarding NVIDIA, other AI stocks, and CPI or inflation data that just got released today, and also any other data to be released this week. Now, let's get started. On your screen, you see NVIDIA stock chart for today. NVIDIA opened at 839. It made a high 874. It made a low 837. And it closed at 870. That is 1.97% up. So finally, NVIDIA went up today. It was down since last 2 days and some people were worried. And I told them, I don't see any reason to worry about at this point. Moving on, 5 days, 3.73% down. Last 1 month, 1.47% up. Last 6 months, 85.96% up. We see the steep curve last 6 months. So NVIDIA has not done a good correction in last 6 months. So after touching all-time high, NVIDIA finally started to make some corrections. So it's a good thing to those who were waiting to buy NVIDIA at the lower price. So moving back to the daily chart, so NVIDIA did not go down further to touch 800. And this is what I expected yesterday. As we saw yesterday chart, and we made an assessment that the downward momentum is not that strong. So NVIDIA should not go too low this week. We'll make further assessment in a bit when we take a look at technical charts. And regarding the inflation data, you notice that CPI came higher than expected and the overall market was down, but NVIDIA is up. You see S&P is down 0.95%. As I expected, that if CPI data comes higher than forecast, we expected that there'll be some volatility or slowdown in the market. And that's what we saw today. Now moving on to the technical charts. On your screen, you see 90-day hourly interval chart for NVIDIA. In last 90 days, NVIDIA made a low 450 and made a high 962. We also have MACD. Take a look at MACD. After getting some downward momentum yesterday, finally it started to go up this morning. And that's a good sign. As I expected yesterday, that this downward momentum will not go further because it did not look to me very strong. So now started to go up, and that's a good sign. We'll see what happens tomorrow. At this point, there is not enough momentum, so NVIDIA can go in either direction tomorrow and day after. But I'm not expecting NVIDIA to go and touch 800 this week. Now let's take a look 30 minutes chart. In a 30 minutes chart as well, you see MACD started to go up further than hourly interval chart. So this tells that in the short term, NVIDIA got more positive momentum in the longer term. So that's a good sign for now. And this tells me going below 820 may not be that easy for NVIDIA this week. Now let's take a look RSI. RSI at 30 minutes interval chart at 61. So slightly overbought, but not much. So it can go in either direction. Now let's take a look hourly chart. In the hourly chart, RSI is at 58, little lower than the 30 minutes chart. This tells me that in the shorter time interval, NVIDIA is more overbought. Now let's draw some Fibonacci levels and see support and resistance. Now I have drawn Fibonacci levels starting from 0% to 100%. I selected the lowest point, 667, because at this point, NVIDIA got big positive momentum. So to me, this point is more relevant. And the highest is 962. So as we saw yesterday, after 849, the next level of support was 814. And NVIDIA did not go further to touch 814. And that's a good thing. And this is exactly what I expected yesterday. So at this point, NVIDIA is at 869. The next support level is 849. So let's see if NVIDIA goes down or goes up tomorrow. So it can go in either direction. The higher side, the next level of resistance is 892. And after that, the strongest resistance is at 962. Then that is the all-time high. This week, I'm not expecting Nvidia to go down further and touch 814. In my opinion, Nvidia will be moving slow this week. Now let's take a look news regarding Nvidia. On your screen, you see Nvidia news for today. I was wondering this morning why Nvidia is up and the overall market is down. There are two good news for Nvidia. One is this one, TSMC revenue went up 16.5% in the first quarter. And that's a very positive news for Nvidia because TSMC is the biggest supplier for Nvidia. Another one is this one. This one. Morgan Stanley increased the price target for Nvidia from 795 to 1000. Normally, you see that Morgan Stanley is not very aggressive in raising the price target. They are more on the conservative side. So in my opinion, that's a very good thing for Nvidia. So that's why, Nvidia was up today versus the overall market was down. So other than those two news, I do not see any significant or big news regarding Nvidia today. There was some news yesterday on Intel chip that's challenging Nvidia in the future, but I digged into that. At this point, I do not see a big threat to Nvidia from Intel. Now, let's take a look at other AI stocks. Palantir 1.7% down, SoundHound 7% down, AMD 2% down, SMCI 0.48% up, Avago 0.88% down, Nvidia 1.97% up. You see that almost all of the AI stocks are down except Nvidia, and that's because of those two positive news. In my opinion, Palantir is another good stock. If it goes below 22, could be a good buy. I'm planning to make one video on Palantir today. Now let's talk about the CPI or inflation data that just got released this morning. So on your screen, you see the historical data and today's data as well. You see the forecast was 3.4% and the actuals came this morning 3.5%. That is 0.1% higher than the forecast, and that's not a good news for the market. Since last four cycles, the actuals came higher than the forecast. So this tells me that this can further delay Fed rate cut plan for this quarter or next quarter. Some people were expecting Fed will start cutting the rates in Q3. Now, after getting these data, last four cycle consecutive higher than their forecast, I'm little worried if Fed can do rate cut in Q3 or not. Now let's take a look core CPI data. The core CPI data that does not include the variable food items and the fuel prices also came higher than the forecast, 3.8% versus 3.7%. The last four cycle core CPI came higher than the forecast. And also that's not a good sign. So both CPI and the core CPI data came higher than the forecast in last four cycle. Let's see what Mr. Powell and the Fed says in the next FOMC meeting. And next FOMC meeting will be more important than ever. Now let's take a look if any other data due this week. So after today, tomorrow, another important data, but compared to CPI, that is not that important. And that is PPI, Producer Price Index, and the core PPI. So we'll watch for it as well tomorrow. If that PPI data comes higher than the forecast, we'll probably see some slowdown in the market. And after the PPI, I do not see any significant data on Friday. It's consumer sentiment, but it's not going to impact the market much. That's all for today. If I summarize today's discussion, I see some good news regarding Nvidia that helped Nvidia go up today. But upward momentum is not that strong. So I expect Nvidia will move slow tomorrow and Friday. It can go in either direction, plus minus 30 points. So also regarding inflation, the inflation data came higher than the forecast, and that's not good for the overall market, and that might delay Fed rate cut plan. Thank you so much for watching. Talk to you more tomorrow. Take care.